Welcome to yet another edition of the Stats and Stacks podcast. For today, we're going over UFC. We have Mackenzie Dern and Marina Rodriguez. Super quick recap of last week. We went 4 of 6 on picks, so a pretty decent week here. But I mean, we have a ton going on, so it is going to be a little quicker and a little more broad this week. We did do fight tape. We just didn't go in depth in regards to watching every single fight that they did this week. However, we have enough. We have the amount that you need to be successful. As aforementioned, I do trust the Die Hard MMA podcast. I do trust the Dog or Pass podcast. I love those two personally, so always going to promote those. And whenever we all agree, I feel extremely confident. And there's going to be times when we don't agree, and a lot is this card. And I don't care. I'm still going with my picks. That's what fight tape is all about. Not everyone is going to see the same things. So again, we're going to go ahead and we're going to dive right in and hopefully be the one on an island that is extremely successful here. All credit in the world to them. Again, not going to waste a lot of your time with this one here, folks. It's only a 10 fight offering. But the fights you're on paper don't look that exciting, but they actually are pretty good fights in all honesty, outside of the first few. So let's go ahead and get ahead with the first one. We have Charlie Ontiveros as a plus 250 dog going up against Steve Garcia as a minus 335 favorite. Over under set at 1.5. The over at minus 130, under at 1.5 is even money. Charlie, in all honesty, is predominantly a striker. The problem with Charlie is you see he's 11-7, and all 7 of his losses are by finish, man. Charlie is kind of kill or be killed. The problem is he's kill or be killed on the regional scene, and that's not a good look. You should not be getting killed on the regional scene. And when you do the killing on the regional scene, who did you actually beat? So, I mean, at that juncture, look at his losses. The Kevin Holland one literally got carried out on a stretcher, his first UFC fight. So that's not a good look. Will Morris, no idea who that is on the regional scene, was 1-0, KO'd him in 1 minute. We have someone else on the regional scene was 2-3, and they knocked him out with a body kick in the first round in 2 minutes. He, for whatever reason, fought Michael Venom Page and Bellator. They were trying to promote MVP. And they did, because MVP knocked him out in the first round. For whatever reason, Jeff Neal he ran into in the regional scene, and he got finished in the second round. We have someone else on the regional scene took his ribs out in the third round, and then he got taken out in the second round. All of his losses, not just by finish, all by knockout. So then you look at his wins. He has a flying knee finish. He has a decision, an arm bar, a guillotine. So decent on the ground for what we know. Some split decisions, an illegal stomp. So technically speaking, I don't really consider that a win. That was a disqualification. And his last fight before coming into the UFC was a knockout. His last 2 before coming in the UFC and being stretchered out was a knockout. So again, he's predominantly a striker, and he either takes you out or you knock him out early, which is why it's probably set at 1.5. Then on the flip side, you have Steve Garcia. Here's the big thing. Charlie fought Kevin Holland at middleweight. He predominantly was a welterweight his whole career. This fight is at lightweight. So this is a little interesting. We don't know if that's going to hurt or help Charlie. Is him being bigger going to help him? Or is that weight cut going to make him weaker? We've seen him at around lightweight before, and he did get knocked out. So is that going to mess with his chin and his durability? I don't know. When it comes to Steve Garcia and his weight classes, this dude is a former bantamweight. I mean, you look at his fights. Yes, he has fought some decent guys at a decent camp at Jackson Wink. Like, everything is correct for him. Fighting Luis Pena, fighting Ricky Tercios, the Ultimate Fighter winner. Alon Cruz was in the UFC, might still be for whatever reason. Like, he's fought UFC vets. He hasn't beat them, but he was in there with them. Actually, he does have a win over Ronnie Lawrence in Bellator, which is really good. Ronnie Lawrence is killing it right now. But again, that's at bantamweight. This fight is at lightweight. And we did see him fight at lightweight before. His debut was at lightweight against Luis Pena. I can't say much about that fight. All Luis Pena did was backpack him for 15 minutes. So At that juncture, you're not going to see Steve Garcia getting a lot of submissions or doing anything off his back. He's predominantly a striker. And when it comes to his striking, it's not good by any means. He's just a pressure fighter, and he goes in wild in a berserker style. And in all honesty, he's fighting someone that has a chin problem. The problem is the size disparity. So do you believe that Charlie is going to be compromised coming down the lightweight and get knocked out easily? Do you think he's going to be able to withstand it and outpoint Steve Garcia, because he does have some decision on his wins? I mean, it's a matter of what you believe. All honesty, the line is way too wide. I'm not trusting a former bantamweight to take out someone that's fought at middleweight, because the only way he does that is very, very quickly. But in retrospect, I am going to trust someone that has actually fought decent competition to win, because at the end of the day, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And Steve Garcia, man, he works hard and he has a talent, so I'm all about Steve here. I just can't trust that minus 335 line. So with the size disparity, even though Charlie seems to be a little fragile, a little glass jawed, I think he might be able to last a round and a half. Minus 130 are not bad odds. In all honesty, stay the hell away from this fight. This is god awful. But if you're gonna pick one, I'd probably go with the over 1.5, just solely on the fact of the size disparity. If it was like one weight class off, I'd probably just still take the under, or Steve inside the distance. But with it being multiple weight classes apart, bantamweight to middleweight, can't do it. I'll just take the over. Next fight of the night, we have Lupita Godinez going up against Silvana Gomez. This is a short notice replacement. We have Lupi at minus 270, Silvana at plus 220. Now, don't get it twisted. Cody made a very great point at the Dogger Pass podcast. It's not as if Silvana's coming in and she has no idea what's going on. She's taking a super short notice, and it's just a warm body. It's not the case. She was supposed to be on Contender Series. She was already preparing to have a fight on Contender Series, just having this fight a little early. So, I mean, at that juncture, with her just having it 3 days early, you do have to watch her at weigh-ins, because that is going to affect the way she was training. But she had a full fight camp. It's not necessarily short notice. When it comes to her, she has pretty decent striking. I mean, you look at her when she has a few arm bars, but I mean, that doesn't mean you have good jiu-jitsu. Women's MMA, you do get a lot of arm bars from guard. Otherwise, yeah, she predominantly relies on her striking. I don't have a lot to say about her. I've only watched one fight, and it was literally the Diana Reyes fight where it lasted 4 minutes and 40 seconds. I only have 4 minutes to go off of her fight tape. I don't have a ton. Looks like she's a striker. All I have, and she does have a full fight camp, so don't fall for the replacement narrative. On the flip side, I did see a lot of Lupi, and Lupi's good. She's 5-1. She should be 6-0. That last fight, I did have a bet on her against Jessica Panay. She did beat Jessica Panay. The judges were just smoking something that day, so I don't know what Panay gave them that day, but either way, it gave her a win. All she did was backpack her. But at the same time, Lupi had her moments where she won in the striking when it was on the feet. And she was just like, she wasn't taking her down. She was throwing her around the cage. I don't understand how you give her a loss there. She should have done a lot more. Probably should have finished Jessica Panay, in all honesty. So it is kind of on her for not getting the job done. But in retrospect, she's pretty good wrestling. She's pretty good on the feet. On the ground, I think she has some credentials on the ground. You don't see much of it, see a lot of decisions on her record. But I mean, she's 28 years old. She's pretty good. Silvana is 36 years old. Don't like that. I don't like the elder statesmen making their debut here. And Lupi has had a fight in the UFC previously. So the pick is definitely going to be Lupi. I just don't like her at minus 270. I don't like those odds at all. I don't have the over-under right now, considering this fight just got put together. I'm assuming it's going to be something crazy. So I guess you would have to take Lupi in reference to getting good odds. But again, this is a fight I would definitely try to stay away from if you can. All right. And then the next fight of the night doesn't get much better. Again, the first three are a little suspect, and then it kind of picks up here. We have Charles Rosa at plus 155 going up against Damon Jackson at minus 195. Over under set at 2.5. The over at minus 182, under at plus 147. Let's start with Damon Jackson. In all honesty, I don't see much from him. He's not the greatest striker. He's predominantly known for his ground game. I know he's only a purple belt, but he's pretty good on the ground. He has a pretty good camp there at Fortis MMA. They seem to like him a lot. The only problem with him is his durability, man. Elliott took him out in round one. He had another fight in PFL. We got taken out in 10 seconds with a flying knee. There's another loss against Kevin Aguilar as a UFC vet. That was by knockout. And then he has a loss to Yancy Maduro's by reverse bulldog choke. Didn't see that fight. Don't know how Yancy got a submission over him. It was probably a club and sub in all honesty. Either way, you look at his record, he's predominantly winning via arm triangle, rear naked choke, arm triangle, arm bar. He's a submission specialist. He does pressure a lot. But his striking's not good. All he has is pressure because he knows his striking isn't good. The only problem I have with that is the fact that he's fighting Charles Rosa, who has fought people like that before. Charles Rosa's last win was over Justin James, who is a pressure fighter. He was able to squeak out a split decision there. Charles Rosa fought Kevin Aguilar, who's a pressure fighter, was able to sneak out a split decision there. So don't get me wrong, this fight is going to be a sweat no matter which way you have it. It's going to be a close fight. Damon Jackson will not be able to tap out Charles Rosa, I'll tell you that. Charles Rosa, the one thing he has going for him is his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Doesn't mean he's going to use it, because he's not the greatest wrestler, but he's very, very solid on the ground, defensively sound. Offensively, again, very sound as well. And his striking's okay. It's not the best, especially because he has zero power whatsoever. He's not going to knock anyone out anytime soon. But in retrospect, I mean, his submissions are good. And his stand-up is clean. It's just not powerful. So I look at it here and I figured I can't really bet this fight. It's probably going to be Charles Rosa, like minus 125, and I want no part of it. I see plus 155. I was running to it. I bet it. I was excited to get Charles Rosa as a dog, and then I realized something. Charles Rosa has been in the UFC since 2014. He lost, he won. 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 He has literally alternated wins and losses for 7 years. And it has not faltered. And his last fight was a win. So, in all honesty, it should be a loss here. However, there are people where I just follow that rule just because, and part of it's being humorous, part of it is just the way it lined up. People like Ronda Marcos comes to mind. People like Roxanne Modafferi. I followed the win-loss train in event, and I'm always wrong when I think that it's going to continue. At this juncture, I just have to trust my gut. Charles Rosa is the better striker. He's a better jiu-jitsu practitioner. So if you have him at dog money, I'm going to take it, especially because he has a gas tank as well. So the pick is going to be Rosa, and I'm going to end up betting Charles Rosa as well. All right. Next fight isn't a great fight, but one I'm excited for because it's one of my favorite fighters, man. I love King Kong, Alexander Romanov, coming in at minus 800 up against Jared Vandera, who I can't stand, at plus 475. Over under set at 1.5. Over 1.5 plus 125. Under 1.5 minus 155. Let's just get the elephant out of the room and start with Alexander Romanov. He is undefeated. He's great. He's young. Or he's not young, he's 30, which is young for heavyweight. He's fast, he has phenomenal wrestling. His striking sucks, but his ground game is pretty good. His cardio was good until we saw it when he didn't go in and just dominate. So the reason his cardio looks so good all the time is because he's always able to stay on the feet and then dictate when it goes to the ground. If he's tired, he'll just take you down and kind of rest up on top. He ran into Juan Espinito his last fight, and he lost. I don't care that he's undefeated here. He did not win that fight. I got very extremely lucky with that decision, mainly on the fact that he got kicked in the nuts and decided he can't continue. I'm not a fan of it. People are comparing it to Aljo. I wouldn't compare that. I would compare it more to the Diego Sanchez situation. But in retrospect, he just was gassed. I don't know if it was the fact that he ran into someone that was just as good as wrestling. I think that's the major part. Wrestling's a lot more tiring when you have someone that stuffs your takedown compared to when you take them down and are able to wrestle a little bit. Because all he did was take you down, and once he got on top of you, it was game over. His striking's never been good. I'll tell you right now, when it comes to heavyweight division, I believe in three rising stars: Alexander Romanov, Tom Aspinall, and Chris Daukaus. Tom Aspinall is getting a big push. Chris Daukaus is about to fight a former two-time title challenger. He's getting a great push. Alexander Romanov is fighting Jared Vanderaa. The UFC kind of gave up on him right now, even though he's undefeated because of the way his last fight went. And I think he's going to come out and try to make a statement in all honesty. And he's going to be able to do so against Jared Vanderaa. He's 12-5. He's a Contender Series vet, I believe. Yep, sure is. He beat Harry Hunsucker, who is god awful. My concern is that he fought Sergey Spivak, who's a decent wrestler. And he got taken down and he got destroyed on the ground. If Sergey Spivak can take you down and destroy you, the things Alexander Romanov is going to do to you. He also got choked out before on the ground. He's got Kimura on the ground. He's not the greatest ground fighter, where Alexander Romanov is pretty good. And he's not the greatest wrestler. He gets to get taken down easily, where Alexander Romanov is pretty good. Jared does have the stand-up advantage, but he's pillow-fisted, so he's not going to knock out Alexander. So at that juncture, Alex is going to get him down eventually. And once he gets on top, that's a big man on top of you. He's not going to shuck him off. So the pick is going to be Alex. The bet is going to be Alex as well. But the problem is the minus 800, you can't do that. So I hate that it's 1.5. But I think Alex is going to want to make a statement after the way his last fight ended. So I'm going to pick the under 1.5 if you want any sort of value. All right. And then the next fight of the night, we have Philippe Caloras going up against Chris Gutierrez. Philippe plus the Team Nogueira product is a plus 195 dog. Gutierrez can be had at minus 175. Over 2.5 is minus 225. Under 2.5 plus 175. We'll start with Philippe. In all honesty, his striking, he's extremely hittable. He averages like 2 something strikes per second on the feet, but he on average gets hit like 4.8 or something like that. Like he gets hit double than what he actually throws, so that's very concerning. He also has a pretty heavy Muay Thai style. Shout out again to the diehard MMA podcast over at Plus Sports Radio, because they did mention he's a Muay Thai fighter, and they are very, very heavy on their lead legs. And Chris Gutierrez, all you hear about is those leg kicks. I mean, Philippe, I like as a fighter. Again, Team Nogueira product. He's very, very good on the ground. His wrestling isn't the greatest, and his striking is okay. He hits hard. He just gets hit a ton as he's trying to swing for the fences. Not a lot of great wins. Luke Sanders a decent win, but he does have a tendency to choke. Untitled Jackson finished the job where he had to. He lost to Domingo Pilarte in a split, so that was interesting. He beat Domingo Pilarte. I'm so sorry. He lost to Geraldo de Freitas. He just has a lot of middle tier guys he's going to split decisions with, or barely winning or barely losing. He's not a terrible fighter by any means. He's just not anything to write home about. But in retrospect, you do have Chris Gutierrez on the other side, who's just phenomenal. He's great on the feet. I can't emphasize how good this guy is on the feet. He does have a little bit of a weak spot when it comes to wrestling. People like Andre Ewell were taking him down, so that's a little concerning, especially with Philippe having such an advantage on the ground. But I mean, he has a purple belt, so hopefully he's able to stay safe if it does hit the ground. And if it doesn't hit the ground, he pieces them apart all day, every day. Just picks them apart, pieces them up. So at that juncture, I don't really like the line, in all honesty. It keeps growing and growing. I want to look at the over, but at the same time, Philippe is so easy to hit. I'm looking at the under at plus 175. That's really good value. So I say you could either parlay Chris Gutierrez, because I do think he wins, and he wins pretty handily, or you can look at that under. and hope that, you just kind of shoot for the fences and get some good value there. That is good value at plus 175. So if I'm going to bet this thing, I'm probably staying away from a bet here. But if I am going to bet, I'd either put Chris in a parlay or I'd actually just go ahead with the under and try to get some pretty good value there. And then next fight of the night is where things get a little dicey. We have Deron Win as a plus 235 dog going up against Phil Hawes. In all honesty, over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 is minus 110. Under 2.5 minus 120. We'll start with Phil. Phil has looked good since going over to Sanford MMA. He's known for being someone that has a ton of power, great wrestling. But he doesn't use it a ton. He more or less just uses like his muscle and explosion and such. He's not terrible. He just doesn't have the greatest gas tank. That's where his weakness is. And we don't know what he's like off his back. He's such a good wrestler that you never see it. My problem with this fight is I think the striking advantage goes to Phil Hawes. The reach goes to Phil Hawes. The wrestling advantage goes to Deron Win. And that's where the concern is. We don't know what Phil Hawes is like off of his back. And we do know that Deron Win also has a little bit of a cardio issue. He also has a little bit of a weight cut and size issue because this dude is 5'6", but at 185, not going to work out here. Also know that he doesn't generally train too hard right now. He's more into the wrestling coaching. So again, that's going to help him get in shape, but he's not really training for an MMA fight. I don't like betting on Deron Win. I like Deron Win. I keep betting on him, and I've won the 2 times that I've bet on him. I want to pull the trigger here. I think the line is off, but then I'm looking at this over under. And if Deron Win survives, I mean, you're looking at it here. He's 7-2, and his losses are by rear naked choke because he gassed out in a split decision loss. So he's going out there and getting knocked out. So if Phil Hawes tries to conserve his gas tank and doesn't take him out early, Deron Win is not going to finish Phil Hawes. I'll tell you that. So the over seems pretty obvious to me. It seems like a pretty solid bet, the minus 110. I think that's parlayable in all honesty. But if you really want value, plus 235 on Deron Win is way too much. They're dangling that in my face. I'm going to have to take it. So I will bet Deron Win. But the lot safer bet is going to be the minus 110 for the over. That should be like a lock in all honesty. And then the next fight's one where I don't really agree with everyone. We have Maria Agapova at a plus 145 dog up against Sabina Mazo at minus 185. Over 2.5 set at minus 202, under 2.5 plus 162. I think that Maria is a little underrated. I know that everyone talks about all of her kind of like issues as a person. She is a little crazy. But she is also 24 years old, so she's just going through a little bit of a phase, in my opinion. Her losses, Shayna Dobson is not a good loss by any means whatsoever. She has a negative record. But she came out there and killed Shayna Dobson. And then she gassed out because she couldn't put her away. And then she got finished. So it's not like she came out there and just got destroyed by Shayna Dobson. That's not what happened. Maria went out there, did everything she could to finish her early, and then she ended up getting finished. Her other loss was to Tracy Cortez. Tracy Cortez is phenomenal. So I have no fault with her losing to Tracy Cortez at all. Otherwise, this girl's a finisher. It's very seldom you see someone at 125 be such a predominant finisher, but I mean, she's good. She is good striking, very powerful. She has a decent body lock takedown. It's not good, but it's not bad. It's decent. And her ground game isn't the greatest, but she just manages to keep getting these rear naked chokes for whatever reason. These long, lanky arms, and she just wraps them around you, and it's game over. So I look at her opponent here in Sabina Mazo. And her problem is her ground game. She can get taken down and get taken down. It doesn't take a lot. I think she only has like 60% takedown defense. Alexis Davis is able to get her to the ground, and Alexis Davis is not a wrestler. Alexis Davis is great on the ground, but she only has like 20% takedown offense, like accuracy. It's very seldom she gets her to the ground. And she took her down every single round and controlled her. So I don't like that. Sabina's a great striker. And she's just honestly a natural. She has a whole bunch of head kick wins. So then I look at the under a little bit, but when you're looking at striker versus striker, right? But one person has a wrestling advantage and a ground game advantage, and she just took the biggest L in history, literally the biggest underdog like upset, and she was the favorite there. I think she's going to be a little gun shy. I think she might try to take her down. And if she does so, she can, if not tap out Sabina, she can at least control her. So I think the line is off. Maria at a plus 145. She's a fucking mental case. She's crazy. But at the same time, she has more tools to get the job done. So if there one person has more opportunities to win, I'm always going to take them at dog money. So the pick is going to be Maria, and the bet's going to be Agapova as well. All right, and we're almost done with the card already. Again, only a 10 fight card offering. We're at Matheus Nicolau going up against Tim Elliott. Nicolau was a minus 205 favorite. Tim Elliott was like plus 160. We'll start with Tim. He's not getting any younger. He's getting a little older here. Tim Elliott right now is 34 years old. I know he's over at Glory MMA with James Krause right now, and it shows. He used to be kill or be killed, go out there, do everything he can to get the finish. If he couldn't get the finish, it's kind of game over. And he did slow down his last few fights against Ryan Benoit and Jordan Espinosa. He's a great wrestler, pretty good on the ground. His striking leads a little bit be desired. Matheus is nasty on the ground. And his wrestling is whatever. It's not the greatest, but his striking's decent, man. He stood with Manel Kape. I thought Manel won that fight, but Matheus did enough to stay safe and to make it to where he could get that decision win. So all the credit in the world to him. He's only 28 years old. He's not super old. I think he definitely has more advantages to win as well. He's at a good camp. Only has 2 losses. And one of them's by knockout. They're both by knockout. Tim Elliott has no power. So at that juncture, if Tim Elliott comes down and tries to wrestle and takes him down, he's in some problems because Matheus is good on the ground. If he tries to stand with him, I think Matheus is better. He just has more routes. I don't like the minus 205 on number. But then the over, I don't think either one's going to finish the other one, and the over is minus 240. So at that juncture, you might as well just take Nicolau at minus 205. So he's going to be the pick, and he's going to be the bet. And then we're already into the co-main event of the evening. We had Jared Gooden going up against Randy Brown. And Jared Gooden, a plus 185 favorite. Randy Brown plus 185 underdog. Randy Brown minus 245 favorite. Over under set at 1.5. And that's the thing that confuses me because the over 1.5 is minus 167, under 1.5 plus 137. If anyone gets this fight finished, it's gonna be Jared Gordon. He has great power. He has good submission defense, not a ton of offense. I mean, he has a guillotine, which is just everything muscle related. But he predominantly like Superman punch, flying knee, punches. He does have a rear naked choke there. KO. He has all of these KOs on his record. Even his last fight was a KO. So he's the power puncher, but he's the dog. So I'm confused in regards to why the over is the plus, or sorry, it's not the plus money, it's minus 167. I do apologize. So basically, when you look at the over under, if you're taking the under, you're taking Jared Gordon. And Jared Gordon's a plus 185 dog, so you might as well just take him straight up. If you're taking the over, you're looking at Randy Brown because Jared Gordon is hard to finish. You look at his losses, they're all by decision, outside of his Bruno Oliveira loss. But he had some weight cutting issues there. And that was also at middleweight. So, I mean, the only loss he had that wasn't by decision was a weight class above. So, not much to say there. This is at welterweight. Speaking of getting knocked out and such, you have Randy Brown here. I think Randy Brown is getting better and better every time you see him. And yes, he does have some knockout losses, but I wouldn't say that he's chinny by any means. I mean, getting knocked out by Vicente Luque. I mean, the dude's about to compete for the title. No wrong there. Nico Price hits like a truck, and it was a kind of an anomaly the way he lost. And then otherwise, Mike Graves tapped him out years ago when he was super young. I mean, right now, he's still 31 years old. He got tapped out when he was like 25 to Mike Graves. I mean, it happens. And he lost to Bilal Muhammad, who's also a top 10 guy. So Mike Graves is very, very good, just not in the UFC, but could be top 10 in the UFC. Nico Price currently is like number 15. Bilal Muhammad is like number 10. Vicente Luque is like number 2 or 3. So he's only losing to ranked guys. Jared Gordon is not ranked, and he's not as good as the competition that Randy lost to. So I get why he's a minus. I get why he's the favorite. I just don't like the odds. I did place a bet on Jared Gordon when he was like plus 190 just because the odds were too high. But if I had to pick someone to win this fight, it would be Randy Brown. I just don't want him to blow up any parlay. So if you bet Randy Brown, you're going to have to lay the chalk. I do think Randy Brown wins the fight, but on a betting perspective, I'm going to go ahead and have to take the dog because the line's off. You got to take the value. You're forced into it. Speaking of being forced into things, we have the main event. We have Marina Rodriguez as a plus 145 dog up against Mackenzie Dern at minus 185. It's a women's fight, ladies and gentlemen, but it's set at the over-under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 is plus money, plus 115. Under 2.5, minus 145. I'll tell you why. Marina Rodriguez is a fucking animal. She's a little older. She's 34, but she hits like a truck. You want to talk about people not having a lot of like finishing power at lower weight classes? It's not often you see a 115 pounder with so much power, but man, she is good on the feet. Ton of knockouts on her record. They're all knockouts. Her ground game leaves a lot to be desired. It's honestly kind of non-existent. Even her only loss on her career is to Carla Esparza because she was able to get takedown and controlled. Otherwise, this girl on the feet is probably the best in the division. In all honesty, I can't think of one person that's a better striker. Maybe like Nina Nunez is close, but in all honesty, not one person is a better striker than her in this weight class. She is the best striker. The problem is she's going up against Mackenzie Dern, who is the best submission practitioner in this division. So what do? This is the definition of wrestler versus grappler. Mackenzie Dern, if she gets you to the ground, it's game over. Like all of her, like, look, she has one decision over Verna, who was just as good on the ground. He's very, very good on the ground. Like Verna is a multiple degree black belt, so she couldn't tap her out. She tapped out Nina, she tapped out Rhonda, she tapped out Hannah, she tapped out Amanda Cooper, Ashley Yoder. She's just tapping out everyone that hits the ground with her. She taps out easily. I mean, omoplatas. She's doing some funky shit down there. She's good, man. I think she's phenomenal. She's a great fighter. Her stand-up's getting better, but she will get fucking torched against Marina on the feet. And Marina's trying to improve her wrestling and grappling, but she will get fucking torched on the ground. So it's a matter of where you think this fight is going to take place. If Mackenzie can take her down, she's going to win easily. If Marina can keep it standing, she's going to win easily. The problem is Mackenzie's not a good wrestler. She's great on the ground. She's okay on the feet, but she can't wrestle. Marina, the problem is Marina, not a good defensive wrestler. Something's got to give. So you're really picking how it happened. So that's why the under is isn't plus money. It's very rare to see under 2.5 at minus 145 in a women's strawweight fight, but they know that it's too one-sided on the feet and too one-sided on the ground. Every fight starts standing up. I've only seen Mackenzie Dern get an easy takedown one time. So if you're telling me it's literally 50-50 and I have plus money on a girl, I will take Marina here at plus 145 odds. It's actually better than the over. So I'll just go ahead and I'll take Marina straight up. The pick is probably going to be Mackenzie in all honesty. But the bet, if I think it's a 50-50 fight, depends on where it is. So I'll take the plus money. And I did have a bet on Marina Rodriguez. Otherwise, that's the fight card, maybe. It's an interesting card. It's a short one. The fights are a lot better than you think. But you got to get through the first few there. Otherwise, the official picks will be posted on Saturday morning, early Saturday this week. I do have to watch the weigh-ins. I might post them, honestly, later Friday. It might be a little more convenient for me. So keep an eye out. It'll be over on Instagram, over on Twitter. I'll even try to post things on TikTok again, just to kind of give you some more avenues of the official bets on Friday night. Otherwise, we look forward to this week, look forward to next week, look forward to the football podcast. The link will be in the description in reference to where you can find us over on Twitter, Instagram, and we look forward to making some money, baby. Yeah, I'm good one.